Hello, in this video we are going to model a part here in Fusion, and I've got it up on the screen now to kind of take a look at it. We're just going to walk through every step of the process. If you've already perhaps manually sketched this in Isometric, perhaps you've created a 3-view, this video is going to walk us through how to model this component or this part in Fusion. And I have it here on the screen, and as we take a look at it, I think it's always the best practice to first stop and just take a quick look and digest and think about what we're going to, or what our approach will be and how we're going to model this. And as I look at this object, know that there are always multiple ways that we can go about modeling a part. There's probably 5 to 8 different ways that we could kind of create this this part in Fusion. Some ways perhaps are better than others. As long as we model it correctly, for right now, that's what we're going to focus on. So really there are a number of options, but as you think about manufacturing processes or the potential of change down the road where we want to make adjustments to this object, there are better ways than others of modeling it. But for now, let's just focus on getting this done perhaps in as few steps as possible or in the most intuitive way as possible. And as I look at this shape, as we think about getting this into Fusion, the first thing that I'm going to think about is, do I want to start with a large object and subtract elements from it, like subtractive modeling, versus do I want to kind of build from the ground up, so to speak, and just kind of create one part at a time. And in this object, I think we could go either way, but I'm going to attack this on more of a building from the ground up approach. As I look at this, I'm seeing this kind of base element here, which would be this larger rectangular prism, if you will, and I think that we can go ahead and sketch this and include this cutout on a basic sketch. So as I look at the way the part's oriented, just kind of making some decisions up front before we jump into Fusion, I think we're going to be sketching on the XZ plane, perhaps drawing a square or a rectangle, maybe including this notch in that sketch, and then we'll extrude up, and that'll take care of what I'm going to call our base. And then we just got to tackle this top part over here. And I'm thinking that'll be yet another rectangle that we extrude up from the surface of our base, and then maybe we'll do a subtractive feature here in the triangle. We could subtract this little key element here, this little notch, but I think we can take care of that in our initial sketch. A manufacturing process, if we were to actually make this, might indicate the best way to model that, but for right now, we're just going to do as few steps as possible. So I'm going to sketch a base, extrude up from the XZ plane, then I'll work on the top surface of that to create another rectangular prism, and then maybe a third sketch here to just take out this triangular shape that we will be eliminating from the top feature. So let's go ahead and jump into Fusion and go about modeling this element. So I've got Fusion up now, and again, just as a reminder, it's always great practice. If we're going to start a new project or a new activity here in Introduction to Engineering Design, let's go ahead and put that into a folder, so that way we have that organized well. So I'm going to go ahead and select a new folder. I'm just going to call this Isometric Practice, and I'm going to go ahead and put the date in which we'll be working on this. Students in my class are going to be tackling this actually tomorrow, which will be October the 3rd of 2024. So I'm going to go ahead and put Isometric Practice 10/3/24. Just have a date there. Now, I've gotten in a bad habit where I just click off, and when I do that in Fusion, it actually doesn't save the work I'm doing. So I apologize about that. Just make sure as you're typing or doing things in Fusion, hitting enter is really what locks that in there. So I'm going to try this one more time with Isometric Practice 10. I'm going to put periods 10/3/24. I'm going to go ahead and enter. That's going to go ahead and create my folder. Perfect. Let's go ahead and jump in that folder, and I have an unsaved document here. I think it's always, again, great practice. Just go ahead and save the document up front and put a name on it. It's going to be in that folder that I just created there. And let's go ahead and insert that title. In this case, we'll call this Object 1. We have 2 objects today. This video is going to be on the first object. Okay, so we're just going to be creating Object 1. Now, here we go. Now, students in my class will have this reference picture that has some dimensions on it. I'll be reading those dimensions off as we model. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my menu here. I'm going to slap that waffle button to increase the amount of space that I'm working with. And let's go ahead and start our first sketch, shall we? We don't have to worry about components here. This isn't going to be an assembly. We can just jump right into it with sketches. We'll go ahead and click Start Sketch, and like I said, the base, I think, to have it oriented in the direction that we're looking at it, I think the XZ plane, or the red and blue axes that we see here in our origin, this is going to be the plane, this bottom plane, I think is going to be best to start sketching on. So I'm going to go ahead and select that for starting a sketch. And I've got my origin here. Again, best practice is always start with our origin. That way we don't have to constrain as much of our detail as we go about drawing this object. And now we can start with a line command or perhaps a rectangle command. I'm going to go ahead and do the line command just for the sake of this demonstration. I'm going to start with the line command by left clicking on that command. And I'm going to move over and left click on our origin. And I'm going to start to model this shape. It's going to come out a certain distance here, and I'm just going to kind of sketch roughly. We'll control this with dimensions here once we kind of get this shape the way we want it. But I'm going to go ahead and come out roughly the size of what we're looking at. It's around 6 inches, so I know I'm about in the right spot. And then just proportionally, I'm going to try to sketch this as I would look at it on the drawing. I'm just left clicking on my line command. I want to make sure that these two lines line up there. Just kind of drawing it roughly to the proportions that I see based on the isometric reference that I've got. Make sure I come back. It's always good to start with your origin there, because this line, as I left clicked here on this axis, I was able to get that to line up directly where I can pull it straight across and close in a profile, which is roughly the same shape again as the feature that I'm referencing. Let me pull that up so you can see that. Right here is what we're working with, and we just essentially worked around this perimeter here to take into account the shape that we're working on our base. Okay, let's go ahead and actually put some dimensions to this. Let's constrain it. So I'm going to go underneath Create, and there's Sketch Dimension. It's also up here in my ribbon already, so it's the way my ribbon is oriented. So I'm going to go ahead and select that command for dimensions, and let's go ahead and start controlling the size of this. So the total length here was actually 6 inches. Go ahead and make that 6. I'll go ahead and make this length 6 as well. Perfect. Again, I'm pulling these dimensions from the reference that I'm looking at here on our drawing. This is going to be a distance of 3. This is also going to be a distance of 3. Looks like this is 2. And this is 2. We are now fully constrained. Our object is black. Just by adding those dimensions in there, we are locked in. I don't need to control its location, just its size, and the reason for that is because I started here on the origin. So let's go ahead and click Finish Sketch. Since I am fully constrained, I'm going to use my view cube here. I'm going to go ahead and left click on that home button to look at this in isometric. And we're going to go ahead and create an extrusion. It's automatically going to select my profile because it's the only profile that I have. And it looks like this extrusion is going to come up 2 inches. I'll type 2 there in the distance box and hit enter, and that gives me an extrusion with a distance of 2. Alright, so I've got what I'm calling our base, and now I'm going to work on this upper feature, and we're going to do a sketch that hits the top surface of our base, and we're just going to draw a rectangular prism, or a rectangle, and then extrude up. And then we'll take care of that little triangular notch that we saw in one of the corners. So let's go ahead and create this upper feature. I'm going to start a new sketch by left clicking on Create Sketch. Rather than worrying about my rather than worrying about my origin, I'm going to select the top surface of our base. That's what I want to sketch on. So I'm going to left click here on the top of our base, and now I'm ready to sketch again. This is a simple rectangle, so let's use that 2-point rectangular command. I'm going to start here on the corner of my object, which also happens to be our origin, and I'm going to draw a rectangle out that covers the entire width of our base. And I did that again by left clicking here to start, and then I would release. I drug my cursor over to where I wanted my rectangle to finish. I used an object snap to line that up with the edge of my object, and I left clicked again to place that rectangle. Let's go ahead and control its size with a dimension again. Let's make our rectangle come out a distance of, looks like I'm going to be working with a distance of 3. I'm going to type in 3, hit enter. That looks good. And I'm already fully constrained. 1 dimension is all it took. Because I started with an object snapped here on the edge of my surface, I drew this out to the other edge of my base. That controlled a lot of its size. It also controlled its location. The only dimension I needed to put in there was that, we're going to call this a depth of 3, and now we are good to go. So let's finish sketch. I know it's fully constrained because it's black in color. And there we go. I've got my rectangle. We can now extrude this up. I'm going to select that rectangle to extrude up. I'm going to give that a distance of 3. And now we have the upper feature of this object. The last thing we need to take care of is going to be this notch that we see right here. And that's just going to be a simple triangle that we draw. And then what would be the corner, if I were to sketch that, we'd be extending this up and over, starting at this corner, and we're just going to draw a triangle to create that notch. So let's do that. Back here in Fusion, I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. And I'm going to select this surface here that it happens, it's offset from the XY plane. And I'm going to sketch on the surface of this upper feature. I'll left click on that when I hit Start Sketch. And we're going to draw a triangle up in this area here. So I'm going to use my line command. I'm going to start with an object snap. I'm going to left click on the top of that upper feature. I'm going to drag that down some distance. Now we can try to lock in these dimensions. That is something we can kind of work towards doing here. As I'm doing some quick math in my head, it looks like this is going to be 2 inches in this direction. And it looks like it'd be equilateral, so it's going to be 2 inches coming down as well. So I'm going to come in and draw this. I'm going to draw this two sides here and draw 2 inches down. I'm going to use another line command to draw this 2 inches out. And then I'm going to left click to connect those dots. And I'm going to get a triangle there. Now it does look like I need to dimension just this hypotenuse of this triangle. I'm going to go ahead and put dimension in there. Let's see if that still does not lock us in place here. So I'm going to go ahead and add some other dimensions. That fully constrains. I don't like this dimension for the hypotenuse, so I'm going to hit Escape to get out of my dimension command. I'm going to left click on that dimension and hit Delete on my keyboard. Let's see if instead I can just put the distance of 2 there. I like that more. I think that's a little more precise. We got 2 and 2. We've got a nice triangle now. We are good to go with that equilateral triangle. Let's go ahead and hit Finish Sketch. Go ahead and extrude. Now I got to select a profile here because I've got multiple profiles to look at. I'm going to work on this little triangle. We're going to extrude that triangle, and instead of creating a new body, we're going to do a cut here. So I'm going to change my distance from positive to negative, and I'm going to extrude this down a -3, which is going to push it through the depth of my upper feature. As you see here, it's going to stop flush on the back of my feature, and I'm creating a cut instead of a new body. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and we have now modeled the object that was given for reference here in Fusion. This guy is 2 dimensions, to the accurate dimensions is following what we have here. We are good to go. Great work, you all. I hope you found this video helpful as we model a practice isometric shape in Fusion. Have a great day.